Back in January, the president said let's leave the sanctions issue alone. Well, it looks like the sanctions just won't leave us alone. There's a new bill in the US. It proposes a few changes to ZERO. ZERO is a law that came about in 2001. It basically imposed sanctions on Zimbabwe over human rights, land reform, and our little adventure in the Congo. Now, this new bill is basically saying if you want to be friends with America, this is what you must do. It's a long list covering electoral reforms and economic issues. The bill wants us to have a new voters' roll, equal access to state media, peaceful campaigns, and so forth. Now, let's get one thing straight real quick. Most of the demands in this new bill, any right-thinking Zimbabwean will agree with. A lot of the stuff is what Zimbabweans have been demanding for ages now, so there are no surprises here. But here's the thing. This is stuff that we must be left to say on our own. Let's demand better elections because it's what our people deserve, not because the US said so. Let's demand stronger institutions, not because someone said we should, but because it's the right thing to do. Because there's a problem here. Is it a coincidence that the new US bill looks a lot like TNIBT's submission to the US Senate? Or the MDC's own demands, which came out in the same week the US bill came out? And let's be real, some of the demands here, they're just not going to happen. A new electoral commission chosen by all the parties in parliament? Well, that means having to change the constitution. To do that, the speaker has to give 90 days notice, 3 whole months. Then there must be nationwide consultations, then the legal committee, then the debates, then the signing, followed by the implementation. We just don't have the time, no. We would have to postpone the elections. But there's an even bigger issue here. America wants Zimbabwe to enforce a ruling by the SADC tribunal. In case you forgot, this ruling said that white farmers must be given back their land and they must be paid for the land they lost. Basically, by telling us to enforce that ruling, America is really telling Zimbabwe to reverse land reform. Now, we all know this is never happening, but $9 billion, that's how much the farmers want for the farms they lost. $9 billion, that's about twice our national budget. Sorry, it's not going to happen. Not in this government, not in a future government. But you see, this is the problem of letting other people speak for us. They just don't get it. Now look, we're going to be told that all these legitimate demands for reforms came from America. We know zanu-pf. They won't be talking about all the other reforms on that list, no. They're going to point to that part about land. They're going to point to that part about denying debt relief for Zimbabwe. They'll say, hey, look at what those opposition guys did. They asked for sanctions. They want land reform reversed. It's a quick win for the propaganda machine. Now, we don't think this is what the MDC wanted when they went out to the US. But yes, this is what we get when we don't put ourselves at the center of our own struggles. When we outsource our activism to America, this is what comes out. It's always going to come out twisted. Our priorities are not their priorities. We know what works and they don't. And you know what's really funny? These US demands came out in the same week that the same America congratulated Vladimir Putin for winning the Russia election. An election where the guy opposing Putin was barred from contesting, where people were spotted voting as many times as they wanted, stuffing ballot boxes and all of that stuff. And what did the US say? They said, no, we don't interfere in other countries' elections.
We don't get to dictate how other countries operate. Putin has been elected in their country, and that's not something that we can dictate to them.
Well, how about us, America? How do small countries like us benefit from that same kind of hypocrisy? Guys, just imagine if here in Zimbabwe, Nelson Chamisa was barred from running. Can you imagine if Zek was caught on tape stuffing ballot boxes? Would America still say, hey, do your thing, Zimbabwe, we don't interfere in other countries' elections? Hell no. This is what we think. The UK backs ED, and whilst the EU is indifferent, they will toe the line and follow Britain's lead. The Russian foreign minister was here this month, and the president will go to China on a state visit in April. However, the US has been more cautious embracing the new dispensation. They have deliberately built deeper relations and more traction with younger Zimbabweans, whereas the UK rides on colonial overhang and the Lancaster Agreement with our older generation. Programs like YALI, the Eisenhower Fellowship, USAP, has seen the USA invest more aggressively than the UK in building future ties. If a generational shift happens after the election, America will easily replace the UK as the Western reference point for local Zimbabweans, and in the long term, the US will win. This could be why BT's recommendations were adopted in full in the proposed ZERO amendment bill. So, it's official, and we all saw it coming. The MDC split has finally happened. After all the drama, violence, and insults, the party has announced that Thokozani Khupe has been expelled from the MDC-T. She's out. It was always a matter of when, not if, she was going to get fired. I mean, this is Zimbabwe. You don't challenge your party leaders in public and survive. Our politics is about following the leader. Always. You can't have a mind of your own and still keep your position. You either toe the line or ship out and form your own party. Even Mugabe told Mnangagwa that. Go form your own party. This one is mine. And it looks like this is exactly what Khupe is going to do. And we've seen this game before. It is 2005 all over again for the MDC. That's when Nelson Chamisa and others split with Morgan Tsvangirai. What we wait to see now is, can Khupe have an impact on this election and what her game plan is? She's never going to have more supporters than Nelson Chamisa, no. She's nowhere near that. But does she have enough to cause a few problems for the MDC? Remember Washman's MDC in 2008? Not much national support, but they took 10 seats. Those 10 seats got them a spot in the unity government. But does Khupe have that kind of power? We doubt it. Times have changed a lot since then. But you know what? One thing for sure is that she can't be ignored. Here's why. In 2013, there were 6 seats that the opposition could have won in Mad South alone, if they'd been united. 6 seats. Instead, zanu-pf took advantage and ran off with every single seat in Mad South. But politics is a funny sport. Remember how MDC-T supporters hated Welshman with a passion? They called him CIO. They swore to never to work with him again. Now here we are. Welshman is one of Chamisa's top guys and he's working to be Chamisa's VP. In the game of politics, nothing is ever final. I mean, think back to Asante Sana. Nothing is ever guaranteed. So yes, many of us will point and laugh at the size of crowds at Khupe's rallies. But we have seen this before. When MDC factions are laughing at each other, it's usually zanu-pf and not the opposition that always has the last laugh.